for those that haven't watched the program lately, share our perspective on Boo Carter. Yours and mine are very different. Go ahead and if you can encapsulate me that. I can't believe I'm asking you to paraphrase me in a quote. I don't know where this is going to go, but I want everybody to know where we're coming from before we move forward because I'm going to be I'm gonna kind of stick with what I got going. I wonder if Caleb will change things. All right, so where do we stand? How would you best encapsulate that?
I would encapsulate it as Dave thinks Boo Carter is going to be used as a wrinkle on the offensive side, may get a couple of catches here and there. Whereas I think Boo Carter is going to be the starting slot receiver.
Okay. And to take that a step further, I also think that they're playing with fire and they could end up with an injured defensive back or a fatigued defensive back. And I don't like the whole direction that this thing is going. And I think it could end up being more of a distraction and a problem because I think it's Boo Carter who is pushing this agenda that he gets to play offense. I know it's exciting. I know it's neat and all that stuff. But here's the bottom line is Tennessee's Willie Martinez said what yesterday at practice? He had this to say, and I thought it was very telling. So, and I've got the wrong story pulled up. Do you have that story up, Caleb, on Boo Carter?
Let me see what Willie Martinez said. Oh crap! I think I've got the wrong story too.
Anyway, they said that they're going to put more, and they have put more on Carter, and he's going to basically call the back end of the defense. Why would he do that? Because Keenan Pili called the defense, and he is gone. He never really got to call the defense, and they just had a scramble with Arian Carter. But you're going to have Boo Carter calling the defense. You're going to have him playing some offense. You're also going to have him returning punts. It's too much on him. He's just a sophomore. This is an absolute fiasco waiting to happen. And listen, I know a lot of you aren't going to agree with me. I know Caleb's not going to agree with me, but I got to ask the question, and that is, what the H? Brought to you by Double D Piping.
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. ThanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Wow, that's a really good point. Hey, Ashley, we're going to get to the Miles Kitselman thing next. Hang tight. I got some insight into that. But Dylan said this. Dion really got into Boo's head, making him think he's the same ballpark as Travis Hunter. I do think there's something to that. I think that Deion Sanders has had an adverse effect on Tennessee's football program because he told Boo Carter he was going to be the next Travis Hunter. Do you think this is putting too much on Boo?
I can't believe it, but Dave, I'm actually coming to your side. Yes, I am. I do. Look, I have been defensive of Boo Carter playing both sides for a while. I think that's insane if you have him calling the plays on defense. I mean, that's insane. There's a reason in baseball pitchers aren't good hitters. They have to focus on their pitching, right? So there's a huge reason in baseball that, there's a huge reason in football that you would never want your quarterback playing defense. If you're the one calling the plays, you can't. Boo Carter can't just be the guy making plays on defense. He's got to study the film too, doesn't he? He's got to learn out. He's got to be the quarterback learning what the other team's offense does during the week more than anybody else.
If he's making the back end calls,
yes,
yeah, yeah. I mean, this was pretty simple earlier, where I was kind of ready to come on board if it happened in September. I still have my doubts he's going to play a lot on offense, but I was willing to come around if he did because that star position, you're pretty much locked up on the slot receiver. I mean, I know they play a little bit of zone, but it's not the most complicated position to play. But now he has to call the back end of the defense. I mean, why in the world can't somebody else do this? Why is he asked to do this? I can tell you part of the reason, because he's a little closer to the box and he's going to see more than a free safety or even a strong safety would. He's not on the outside like a corner. But this to me needs to be T-Lander's job, Carter's job, somebody else's job besides Boo Carter. If you really want to play him on offense, it feeds into my narrative. This is all a dog and pony show.
I mean, it's either a dog and pony show or they are literally going to run Boo Carter into the ground.
This is a player too. There was maturity issues during his recruitment. Caleb, he changed high schools in Chattanooga. I have great ties in Chattanooga. I heard a lot of things about how physically, man, he's awesome, set. He's going to be incredible. Emotionally and mentally, he needs some tough coaching. He didn't have that in high school. A lot of guys don't because they say, I'm so good, I don't have to have tough coaching.
Yeah, and look, if there's one thing that if there's one area where that could be an issue, Josh Heupel, I mean, tough coaching ain't really his mantra, is it?
No.
But at the same time,
yacht coach, and you can win in both ways.
You can. Now, Rodney Garner is a tough guy, but he's not coaching Boo Carter. Tim Banks and Willie Martinez are. Here's the problem with this. Again, if he's calling the plays, then I would have to think it's a dog and pony show. They're not going to acquiesce to these demands and also have him call the plays. What if they're doing this, Dave? Okay, how about this? This is coming to my mind. Method to the madness. What if they don't want Boo Carter playing offense, but they need Boo Carter to willingly take himself out of the offense so he's not unhappy? So they're calling the defense on him. So then he realizes it's just too much and that he can't do this.
Well, he's never going to do that. You're never going to pull yourself out on offense. And another good point by the message board. Oh, I dropped it. My bad. Here, let me see if I can pull that back up. Now, Colton says maybe he's that advanced. Maybe he is. But Orange Blood said, here's my concern. He runs his mouth too much on the field. Penalty risk.
You kind of like that in a defensive back, though.
I don't have a problem with that, but it speaks to his lack of maturity last year. You should be immature as a freshman. The question is, has he taken this quantum leap in the offseason where he's able to play another position and call the defense? That to me is asking an awful lot.
No, it's asking too much. I agree. I think they're trying to put all that on him. I think they want Boo Carter to make the decision that he doesn't want to play offense. Okay, and this is their workaround.
Oh, okay. That's where I was going. So you beat me to it. Yes, I think they're trying to say we're giving you more responsibility. We haven't had a lot of junior captains, but you're in line for that. We acquiesce with the offense thing during spring camp, but let's be honest, you're a borderline captain. You're calling the defense. We need you there. Yeah, you could spin that just like a 12-year-old child, how you're not getting what you want, and you'll be in this position before long when Quincy gets a little bit older. But you can spin it into, no, you really got what you wanted. When you
okay, the best example I see of this is it's Modern Family where I think Haley, the oldest daughter, gets really drunk and hungover the next day, and then Claire just starts giving her stuff to make her hangover worse, to make her really feel it. So like that way Claire's like, I don't have to tell her not to drink anymore. I'm going to make her hangover suck so bad she's not going to want to drink anymore. So that's what I feel like they're doing with Boo Carter. They're like, we're going to put so much on him that he himself is going to be like, I don't want to do all this, man. I got to back off some of this.
Now, Dylan brings up a great point. And if you can share our poll question, we'll get to that here in a moment. Dylan says, I will say we need a diva in the receiver room. We need somebody with some moxie that'll get guys going, but we're stretching Boo real thin. I will agree with you there. But again, he can do that in spring camp by getting to know these guys and talking trash to them throughout practice while he's playing defense. So we'll get our poll question up and out, which is what, Caleb?
Our poll question is, Vols are putting too much on Boo or making Boo a star? It's basically...
All right. It's brought to you by Double D Piping. What the H?
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in...
What's our poll question, Caleb? Where does it stand?
Our poll question right now is, I mean, it's 55-45, putting too much on Boo, but it keeps going 50-50 and going either way. So it's tough. 11 votes right now, with 6 saying putting too much on Boo and 5 saying making Boo a star. Keep voting on this, guys. It's tough. I do think if they're having Boo call the plays, they're putting too much on him. But again, I'm saying this now. There's method to the madness. They're purposely putting too much on him in spring practice, so he won't. So he will ask to be taken off offense.
Right.
Later in the year.
Do you think they are asking too much of Boo and he isn't asking for it? Well, of course he's asking for it. But if it gets to be too much, you better say uncle. And listen, if I were Boo, I'd ask to be the head coach at the University of Tennessee when I'm done. I would like to be the coach in waiting. Why not? You can ask for anything. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. Now, David brings up a really good point. And this is the way I would have acquiesced Boo Carter's demand to play offense. Boo Carter could do what Fulmer should have done with Eric Berry on offense. They were playing their best athlete on offense. Okay, but what did Eric Berry do for those that don't remember, Caleb?
Well, and he didn't play much on offense for Philip Fulmer. That was Lane Kiffin that used him on offense, where Lane Kiffin would have Eric Berry come in on like a gadget wildcat play, do a handoff, and run with the ball. And Eric Berry wasn't the only one who did that. Nukees Richardson did that.
See, that's so easily doable. It's run right, run left, run a gap, run right a gap. I mean, that's so doable. Learning to be the slot receiver at Tennessee that does have to make reads on safety is another challenge. Altogether. And I'm trying to remember on those Eric Berry teams. I know he was a leader, but he was not a vociferous leader. So who were some of the other defensive backs? Did he have to be the tried and true sole leader of that defensive backfield?
Well, during Fulmer's year, his 2 years under Fulmer, his first year he didn't. Jonathan Hefney was in the secondary his freshman year, and Jonathan Hefney was the leader of that defense, to the point where I think Jonathan Hefney made some real sacrifices to his NFL potential to help with what was needed that year. After that, yes, I think Eric Berry did have to step up and be a leader, particularly with I do believe Brett Vinson was working on the defensive side at the time, but then Lane Kiffin dismissed him from the team.
Even Brett Vinson didn't think he'd have a shout out today. Now, one last point on this. Adam says our coaches can't afford to make someone fail at the team's expense. They'll be jobless. Let me clarify. Okay. They're not going to do so in the fall. They're going to put more on him in the spring if that's what they're thinking. And then in the summer, he's going to be dog tired because of how much they do at the skill positions with summer workouts. And then when you get into fall camp, no, you're not going to put him in this position.
No. But that's what the thing. You're right. They want him completely exhausted. They're going to give him a playbook, by the way, of like, you want to do both? This is everything you need to learn in the summer. And then he's going to be like, oh man. Or here's the other way they could do this, Dave. They could put so much on him knowing he won't learn it all. And then they were like, you better be ready at fall camp to be able to handle all this. Otherwise, we're not going to do this. And then he comes in fall camp and he's not ready for some of it. And they're going to be like, well, we told you you're not ready for this. So you can't play offense. And it's on you because you didn't learn it all.
Here's all you got to do. He has the leverage right now. He could jump in the transfer portal today. All you got to do is get to the fall. You just got to get to that last week in July when you start preseason camp. And then he's not going to go anywhere because it's in his best interest to play hard. He might be miffed and wants to transfer from the opening game because I didn't get to play enough offense. That's fine. You're still going to play your hardest throughout the season and not be a malcontent to make yourself as likable by not the NFL. He'd have to play another year, but as likable by a potential transfer destination as you are by Tennessee's coaching staffs. You just have to get to that last week in July, and then you're golden. And he can be as upset as he wants to, and I don't give two bleeps.
The only factor and the only reason I would push back, Dave, is there is still that elephant in the room, which is Deion Sanders. Because you talk about Pruitt being in Jeremy Banks' ear. I'm telling you, a guy like Deion is probably still in Boo's ear every day. You know, if you were,
I wouldn't argue
you'd be
that,
playing both sides.
I wouldn't argue with that. But listen, if I think Boo's going to transfer after the 2025 season, that's a problem for January. That's not a problem for now. I'll deal with that in January. I'm not going to worry about Deion potentially calling him during the season and it affecting my coaching decisions. I'm just not going to do that.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb. This day in Tennessee sports history, I imagine it's some basketball.
It is. And I actually have to correct myself real quick from the stat of the day. Tennessee's one of 2 remaining teams. Duke is the other team with the men's and women's program in the Sweet 16. I apologize up front.
It's officially the flat of the day. Just flat all around.
Chlorophyll, more like Boerville.
It didn't take much digging, and it wasn't even correct. All right, what's this day in Tennessee sports history?
I hate you, Dave.
Let's all keep our fingers crossed and hoping this one's accurate.
Today is
people all over East Tennessee are going to be going around saying Tennessee's the only team that has its men's and women's.
Oh yeah, that's what they're going to. Okay,
they are, and then other people are going to say no, Duke does, and they're going to go, damn it, Caleb's so stupid.
And then those nerdy Duke fans are going to be like, "Don't you know about Duke? We have so many good teams. We have one more team in the Sweet 16."
All right,
Sorry.
another voice.
As they go
all right,
watch Star Trek.
What do we got?
By the way, Star Trek's fine. I got no beef. Okay, so 20 years ago today, on this day, 20 years ago, and I looked it up. It was on this day. Tennessee made the defining decision that propelled their basketball program to what it is when they hired Bruce Pearl on this day 20 years ago, March the 28th. And for those who don't remember, that was kind of an out of the blue hire at the time. If you guys forgot, they had fired Buzz Peterson and they were talking to Bobby Knight for a minute. Do you remember that, Dave?
I do remember that.
Yeah, and there was talk that they could lure him from Texas Tech. But Mike Hamilton wanted Bobby Knight even though he ran the motion offense, the style was a little bit boring. He needed a little more flash. And Mike Hamilton, to his credit, did his due diligence and learned about the system Bruce Pearl runs and zoned in on the tempo. And I think that at that point, Bobby Knight, Bruce Pearl as a cheerleader, and with his style, Mike Hamilton knew he had hit a home run, and he did.
All right. So, by the way, a post on the message board. We're going to go back to the stat of the day. As it appears to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but does Florida still have the women's and men's basketball team alive in the NCAA tournament?
I don't believe Florida has the women's basketball. I think Florida's in the NIT, aren't they? Yeah. Florida's in the women's basketball invitational tournament.
Okay. Should that count?
No, it shouldn't count.
Yeah, I realize. And as far as the comment that you made, what is that? German? I don't know. Sounded like he had a little bratwurst in his mouth. Probably not the first time.
Bratwurst is great. Have you ever had bratwurst?
Oh yeah. Adam says so. Our coaches. I want to go back to the boo thing for a second. So our coaches are lying about their intent to their best players early in their careers. Yes.
Sometimes you have sometimes parents.
Sometimes, all the time.
And by the way, sometimes it's for their own good. Don't parents sometimes have to lie to their kids?
If you think Mike Matthews, for instance, is going to bottom out and not be a good player, are you telling him that, boy, some really sad days are on your horizon? No, you're telling him that he can be an all-SEC player. And to take it a step further, Adam said if he transfers next spring because we were dishonest, someone else gets booed for his best year. That makes very little sense. I'm not saying you want it to happen, Caleb. I didn't say that, did I?
No, you didn't.
But if you can keep him happy and you think he's the guy that needs to call your defense and you get this year out of him and you wonder if he's got one foot out the door already, then you just have to deal with it in January. You can't carry on during the season thinking, oh my gosh, man, this game against Georgia is so close. It's a 3-point game. But wait, is Boo happy? Where's the boo-o-meter? Because if he hasn't played at least 5.5 plays, you know how fussy he can get next week in practice. You can't do that. So I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying you would have to manage it through this year. And I have trouble believing, based on the things I was told about him as a senior in high school, that he's suddenly the most mature individual in the world. It's just been 2 years. Things have gone his way. I think he's going to have to really have a gut check and an ego check this upcoming season if he doesn't get what he believes he was promised on offense. I don't believe he's been promised anything. I think he's been promised an opportunity to compete. Caleb, that's how you package that. You don't say you're going to play 10 plays on offense. You don't give away any numbers like that. It's just like buying a car.
No, I agree. You don't, you could say you're going to play. But again, the move here is to make, my wife says she does this to me, and this is in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. If you guys have ever seen the movie, women do this all the time with their men, and I haven't been able to learn how to reciprocate the skill, but they like to do things, but they want their husbands to think that they came up with the idea because they don't want to look like they came up with the idea. And I'm telling you, that's what they're doing with Boo Carter. They want him to come up with the idea of I shouldn't play both sides of the ball.